It's disorganized play. It's disorganized play. What are we doing today? It's time for the recap show. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Tom Lommel. I am your host. I'm not Havana Mahoney. Sometimes I say I'm Havana Mahoney. That's not true. I said it last night, and I freaked her out. Am I DMing? That was very funny. All right. So, thank you so much for joining me, our illustrious founder, executive, producer. You don't have to scurry over here. Dom Zook stuffing a sandwich in his face, much like I just recently did. So, welcome to the show. On Tuesdays, I prep a game of Dungeons & Dragons. On Wednesdays, I run a game of Dungeons & Dragons at this very table, in fact. And on Thursdays, we come back and we talk about what happened, what went well, what went wrong, what could have been done differently, and also sometimes just generally talk about GM philosophy, RPGs, what's going on in the world of tabletop, etc. So if you have a question, maybe we'll tackle that today. We do sort of take those off the cuff a little bit, but we do have an agenda, right? So we're going to talk about an overview of the game and the introduction of Ava last night. We'll talk about that briefly. There's an agenda item called The Play's the Thing. We're going to talk about scenes within scenes. So that's pretty exciting, I think. 3 rounds and out. We'll talk about the combat that we had last night. We're going to talk about grappling. We could just spend a whole episode just on grappling, couldn't we? It's always a problem. No one's ever happy with the solutions. Let's discuss. Let us discuss. And then finally, we're going to revisit our flashback rewards. We had one unlocked last night, and it did not get utilized by the players, although I thought there were opportunities to do that. And so I want to talk a little bit about maybe restructuring how that works or is activated. I do think it's a valuable and interesting mechanic or concept in the game. I think we're still finding our way around, like, what's the ideal way to activate it and whatnot. So that's our agenda for today. Is there anything you want to add, Mr. Zook? I just made this on my own without your input.
Wow, so. Wow, all by yourself.
Yeah. I got my big boy pants on again now.
No, I don't think so. I think if we still have time at the end, I'd love to hear how people feel about rewards and stuff, and that if they feel like everything is going the way that they're hoping it's going.
The way they're hoping it's going.
Well,
my iPad is not being friendly with.
Well,
that's more
who needs the iPad? We got a big old.
I do.
Big old laptop here, and
I need
that
the
thing
iPad.
right there.
I'm blind.
Hi everyone. Hi, how are you? I'm right here in your ear.
Tom's ASMR. Sorry.
Welcome to my ASMR D&D channel. What's wrong with that? Listen, we might, boost the viewer count if we. All right, none of this is working. I'm unhappy. I'm completely unhappy. All right, so let's talk a little bit about overview introduction. Overall, I thought that we'll use the Monday Night Dungeon Fight trophy as a stand. That's not going to work.
Right there. See?
I don't trust my iPad to... Much as I love Nick's work, I know that's mostly hot melt glue. All right, whatever. It'll be fine. Do I have something in my bag that might hold it up? I'm not going to worry about it. I thought overall, the introduction of Megan's new character went really well. I like her character, which I guess is good.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But yeah, I think one thing that I realized, which I wish I would have communicated to her a little bit earlier, is you say that this should work, but it's not going to work. I'm telling you guys, this is. See, a big problem is that it slides at the bottom. It makes a problem. What do we have that has a little traction? Nothing. Here, let me try this. Nope, that's not going to work either. I have one at home is the thing. They are good enough. I solved it.
Oh, okay.
It has been solved. Rage. So I really like. I wish I had told Megan that it's not just like her mission in the world is not just evangelizing for her goddess, because I feel like there's a couple problems with that. Number one, it makes the character a little one-dimensional. They just always talk about this one thing, and that's not necessarily fun to role play or always fun to watch. It does provide an interesting angle, right? So that's cool. But also, you know, I sort of have learned this lesson secondhand with Dungeon World. You need to be careful with characters who are their main through line is imposing their point of view on other people, right? Specifically because the party members end up spending so much time with that person that they kind of become the brunt of it. Like, and you could sort of see the fingers of that sort of like kind of like beginning to kind of crawl out a little bit in terms of like, oh, who do you worship and what do you do? And those are all perfectly natural, and I don't think it got anywhere near out of hand last night. But it's a dangerous position to put a player and a PC in, where they're there to basically convert somebody else in the party, especially because that person may not be interested in being converted. We also had that through line a little bit with the whole Gulthias campaign arc, where you're being offered power and will you join, and are you interested in joining? And I don't think it's worth revisiting as a major theme at this point in the campaign again. Like, it might come back around, that might be fine, but I don't think coming right off of that Gulthias storyline to go back into that. So I talked to Megan about this last night, but I wish I had talked to her about it ahead of time, which is part of her mission is just to explore the world and learn, okay, well, what is this place that Kasharla would be coming back into? What maybe I like the idea that Kasharla doesn't actually know what the world is like right now for whatever reason, and so I want you to gather information. Who are these people? What's the best way to rule them or to reach them or whatever it may be? I guess it probably wouldn't be so much rule them because the sea goddess seems like real big on individual freedom, right?
Right.
And that's kind of a big saving grace of the whole thing, is that the sea goddess's ethos is very clearly like, you do you. Rather than like Gulthias, which is very much, I'm going to corrupt you and bring you into my fold and then you'll never leave.
Right.
So that's one thing that I just wish I had been more upfront with her about, because I think it would have gotten the introduction off on a little bit different foot.
Yeah, I guess there was a little bit at the beginning where they were like, great, another god is trying to deal with us, and how is that? I think it was all handled very naturally between the characters, and everyone was reacting the way that they would react in that. And I especially liked when Avril and Thon were like going like, can we do this? Like, this person, this is the avatar of this god, and they were having this conversation. Meanwhile, the Paladin of Torm is talking to an avatar of a god and going, hey, how you doing? And she's like, great, what do you do? And he's like, I follow Torm. Cool. They're just like totally like,
yeah, there was an interesting kind of two different conversations happening at the same time. I also think it's interesting that they have decided that she's sort of their responsibility. She's almost sort of their child.
Yeah.
In some respects. It'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out. That is also like a power status type of relationship, and I'm not entirely like I'm curious to watch that kind of go someplace and see what happens.
Right.
Yes, as BSB Care points out, maybe the best parts of last night's scenario was Avril teaching Ava how to do all of this horrible. Here, I'm going to teach you how to send something back at a restaurant. And now just yell it. Now just yell it. Now ask for a free bottle of wine. I really enjoyed that piece of it.
What movie is that where they have someone and they basically teach him like all the bad habits? I think it might be a Brendan Fraser movie or something like that.
Oh, is it like Encino Man or
like
something
Encino
like that?
Man or something? Yeah, where they're just like, do this, and it's like, that's terrible.
Huh, I've never seen Encino Man, but I love Brendan Fraser. He's hilarious.
So does Amy.
See?
For different reasons.
Well, all right. How do you know?
Because she's very upfront about it. She built an entire character based on him looking like Brendan Fraser.
Christian Linky puts up Blast from the Past.
Great movie, by the way. Blast from the Past. Not the one I was thinking of, although it is also that fish out of water thing. Oh, Earth Girls Are Easy? Yeah. BSB Care.
You know what I'm thinking of is there was a movie where, and I'm trying to remember who was the main, who played the lead. Like an alien comes to life and he inhabits. This is the weirdest. This is a very like 80s kind of premise. Mm-hmm. Is this woman is widowed. And she has something like I don't know if it's like she has some hair of her husband or she has his ashes or something like that. Uh-huh. And this alien energy being comes down and like goes into his remains, whatever it is. And I don't even remember if it's at what point the guy dies. Like maybe the guy gets wounded, but the spirit goes into the guy. Anyway, reincarnates into the guy, like takes on his body, but is this alien man. Mm-hmm. And she has to teach him kind of like how to be a human. And also, of course, there's the invariable...
Yeah, Starman, I think.
Starman, yes. Starman. Yeah. Everybody, Starman. Yeah, I felt like there was a very Starman kind of vibe, too.
There was a Starman. I was getting Kimmy Schmidt.
Yeah. I haven't watched Kimmy Schmidt, so...
It was a little Kimmy Schmidt. Like,
mm-hmm. Yeah, anyway. Somebody said that last night in chat, too.
Yeah.
It's like the Kimmy Schmidt, the bubbly woman with the dark side, the sudden dark side that'll get on.
I think that was me.
Yeah.
I said that.
So, Drop Dead Fred. I haven't seen it, but I'm a big fan of Rick Mayall, who is the star of Drop Dead Fred,
yeah.
who was in The Young Ones, which is one of my favorite, if not my favorite TV series.
Yeah.
If you've never seen The Young Ones, God, find a way to go back and watch the unedited versions because they released them on DVD, but it was a variety show on the BBC, and the way that they got away with funding the show was they're like, we're not a comedy because they'd already had a full slate of comedies. We're a variety show. And what that meant was they had to have at least 2 songs during their half hour or 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. So they had on like Stuart Copeland from The Police, and they had Motorhead on and all of these different artists. And they had Madness on. This was a show in the early 80s. And they would come on and they sing two songs in the middle of this huge, like for no reason. They would just like all of a sudden cut to the band in the living room. They never secured music rights to the stuff that they did. So when they went to release it on DVD, like Madness does this wonderful cover of Dylan's Subterranean Homesick Blues. They never got the rights
you'll never
from
see
Dylan.
It. Yeah.
and so when they aired it on MTV back in the 80s, they aired the whole thing.
Yeah.
But then when they released the DVD set, they had to cut all that stuff out. So I got the DVDs and I'm like, I really like... Wait a minute. It feels like something's missing.
Right.
Young One's brilliant, surreal, hilarious. Go watch it. That's all I have to say about that. All right. So overall, I think I was really happy with... yeah, very good. Lay down. All right. Is it French fry time again?
Oh, boy.
I've only got a small ration of fries left here. There you go, buddy. Oh, that one did a little bounce. Overall, I think she's going to be a great addition. She introduces a new dynamic. I think she's fun, and not necessarily as chaotic as Tack was, although I don't know that Tack was chaotic either. You're fine. But injects a new dynamic into the party, and I think I'm looking forward to see how it plays out. It's a fun concept too. I'm really glad that like Megan enjoyed the concept and like took to it the way that she did, and I think there's still some fun things to unlock. What I like about having her her character in the game as this supernatural kind of outside force is it gives you room to play all of those weird sort of mystic things that we played with Tack, but in a totally different, through a different lens and stuff. Like last night when she did her perception check, and it's like you feel the anger coming off of these people. Like, oh, she can sense emotions and be affected by it. Not that we can't all sense emotions and be affected by it, but clearly like she processes it in a different way. And I think there's so many opportunities to do something interesting with. This is the first time that you have eaten seafood. This is the first time you've been in a room with 400 people. Lots of fun opportunities there.
Yeah, I was talking with Havana after the show, and she was really happy with Megan's character because it brought a lightness. Tack. Amy is very light, but Tack was a very intense character, and I think that the intensity, especially near the end when people are making literally deals with the devil, and things like that. It gets a little heavy, and then now you've got this complete neophyte, joining the team who is pure as the driven snow. So they think, anyway. I mean, there's, as far as I know, there's nothing nefarious about her, but there's always
an opportunity, of course. But yeah, I also think that the seeds that were there within Amy's character, because she clearly was interested in playing somebody who was sort of tempted by these, ambiguous, if not malevolent voices, right?
Yeah.
But all of that got super heightened by the adventures that we played. Sunless Citadel, once we introduced the idea that there was a vampire behind the scenes here, that just carried through that whole arc and made the stuff that we had started with just intensify.
Yeah.
I don't think so. As we go forward, we're going to be playing Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. I don't expect that same kind of descent into darkness type of arc that we went through with Sunless Citadel and White Plume Mountain. So
we did see a little bit of Galadriel from Lord of the Rings last night when the clam chowder came out.
I was trying to figure out what her what the appropriate response was. Like, should you not eat fish at all?
Right.
Or was it sacrilege that the fish had been cooked? Are you supposed to eat raw fish? Which would make a little more sense to me. But yeah, I was like, I'm curious. Now I want to know, what's the right way?
Yeah.
What's the right answer here? Is it no fish, or is it just improperly prepared? So. All right, let's move on to... so I want to talk about a few elements of last night's session that could have been tweaked, could have been different, or just how they came up, and some post play thoughts here. So first of all, the play's the thing. I wish I'd been more prepared with maybe an accurate map of the theater, so that they had better ideas. It would have been nice to have just not necessarily a battle map, but and admittedly, I'm playing an adventure called Stage Misdirections. It's a Living Forgotten Realms adventure. It's published, right? So you can go Google that and find it and look through it if you want. So there was a map that I could have shared, but I wish I had at least sketched them or shown them the map. That's one thing. It would have given people an idea of okay, here's the dimensions, here's where everything is relative to everybody else. It cuts down some of that questioning, can I jump over to here? Can I swing down onto the stage, etc. The flip side of that is having gone into Theater of the Mind and not having that map there, it enables you to go, yeah, all right, roll. Let's try it. It's going to be a tough one. You're going to need an 18. And then Grayson gets a 24 or whatever, and okay, he does it with aplomb, and
Right.
you know, Avril gets a 19 to kind of wall run around into the booth and whatnot. So I think it worked. It worked out. Theater of the mind enables some of that stuff, right? So in terms of that, it was kind of a 6 of one, half a dozen of another. Also, it's just easier to kind of mentally arrange people a little bit differently. They don't look and go, oh, that guy's surrounded by 4 thugs, so I better not go take on 5 guys. Mm-hmm. Instead, Grayson just sort of waded in to attack that dude, and then he's like, oh, yeah, that's right, there's all those thugs. Wham, 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 wham. But the thing that I wish, in hindsight, I think would have made for an interesting play experience is, and this is not included in the module, I wish I'd actually written up a little script that would have been the play. And either just like taken a bad medieval play or whatever and maybe changed some of the names or something. Or just fabricated this story of Eloy and Jane. Mm-hmm. And then handed them out to the players and go, okay, the play starts, you know, and give them the script to then kind of step out of their characters and, you know, do the bad acting that was going to be on, you know, and to kind of have that moment where they're, you know, oh, okay, what now it's your turn. Who's, you know, just, and not much of it, like maybe 2 pages of script, not a lot of it, but it would have helped build that moment to like, here, have this glass of wine. And so rather than me telling them, here's what's happening on stage, they're portraying it. I think that's a dangerous concept if it's taken too far. If it were like a 6-page scene, like now all of a sudden you're really kind of getting very divorced from the world that you've established, and it starts to feel awkward, and it's just bad acting as opposed to fun bad acting, if that makes sense. But that's something that in hindsight I wish I would have spent half an hour or 45 minutes and put it together as a little fun little, like just a little play, let's do some play acting type of thing.
Right.
So that's one thing that I think you can consider doing if you're going to design a session for the night, right? When you're putting together what's going to happen this evening, we talk so many times about like pacing and tone and things like that. When you have something like this, it's a way to change the pacing, change the tone, let the players play a character that's not their regular character for a very brief amount of time. And it's a fun little diversion. It's a fun, whimsical kind of... It should be. That's the intent, right? To have a little whimsical interlude within the session. And then the guy drinks the poison and he dies. And away we go, right? So... it's not something that you very often see in D&D. Like my experience of this really comes out of having played the Nazcraig tournament at Gen Con. Mm-hmm. Like they will deploy this on a fairly regular basis, right? And that's cool, but I don't see it like in published modules. I don't see it. I just very rarely see that mechanism. I wish I had the foresight to go, oh yeah, this is an opportunity to do that, and then hand it out. Because we've got the people who can pull it off.
Sure, yeah.
And it would have been a fun, instructive moment. Now, there may still be opportunities for that to happen within the arc of this particular adventure. So it's something that I can hip pocket and pull out in a later session. But
yeah, it would be fun if this play comes back at some point when they go to like a different city or something, and it's a touring show. You know?
Yeah, well, and so part of what's going on behind the scenes here, and this is not very obvious in the meta plot. I don't think we have any players in the chat today, right?
I haven't seen any.
Yeah. So part of what's going on in the meta plot is that there's this group of cultists who are trying to normalize the idea of cavorting with devils. Mm-hmm. So we saw a thing where when the guy dies on stage, the rest of the company begins improvising this play about the dreams that he's having where he's fighting devils or whatnot, right? Well, they could come back. That can come back later, and they could visit other theaters or whatever.
Right.
Oh, is it time for another fry? Is it time for another French fry?
Oh boy.
Better lay down.
All right. We'll do it.
So there is definitely an opportunity for that to pop up again, and as James V points out, like Grayson's going to rehearsals, so we could play that
Go
scene
back,
out.
yeah,
That would be fun. All right. So the next thing on the agenda, I don't know. Do you have anything else about the theater scene that you want to throw out there before the combat, prior to the combat?
No, not really. I mean, it felt I wasn't ever entirely sure, and I'm doing like 100 million other things back there, but I wasn't 100% sure like when they were in the show, like when it started, like giving the ticket to a ticket person, going and finding their seats and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, that's sort of like minutia. I don't know if that was covered at all, but it felt like they started in one place, they have tickets, they went to go eat food, and then suddenly they were at the theater. And I don't know if there was probably some connecting bits in there, but
some of it is the way that the adventure was structured. It like starts with like you're going to the theater, and then it has a whole page of like here's different hooks as to why they would be there.
Right.
And none of them really applied to what I had, so I couldn't use any of those descriptions. And then it basically just goes into the play has started.
Yeah.
And there is this section that's like, well, if they do an insight check or they do a perception check, they could learn the following things before the show actually starts. But it doesn't have box text attached to it or any kind of description. And so we did that. There was this moment where I told them, like, okay, you see this guy working the crowd, you notice these various things, and then they started to form a plan, and I'm like, well, it took you all of pre-show to figure this stuff out. So the curtain goes up, the lights go down, and the show starts. So there was this kind of thing where I kind of had to cut them off and go, no, you can't send somebody around backstage, and you can't send somebody to the box office, and you can't whatever. So
right.
I think that groundwork could have been a little smoother. Sure. Yeah.
I mean, all it did was just sort of set me like in terms of like feeling Waterdeep as a city. You know what I mean? Like they go from one place to the next, and it was just that connecting.
I think there was a part of it was like we were in this very amorphous kind of like they finished their meal and they got kind of day drunk, and then we got into this amorphous let's
montage,
go shopping and then we got done shopping and we need to change clothes someplace, and that became an issue that we had to solve. And so then I was like, well, you stop at some random unnamed tavern and change clothes, but you also rent a room for the night. And so that got kind of weird, and then it's like, and then you go to the theater, right? So some of it was just like I'm trying to compress. Like,
sure,
they got out of the red-eyed owl, and then it was like I don't want to spend. I mean, it was okay. It was like a fine RP session or whatever, but I didn't really want to get into a big. I don't want to spend half the session doing like a shopping trip.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where it was like sort of like meandering off to, and I think that's why it got kind of messy and muddled into like now we're in the theater.
Yeah.
Because I think in an ideal world it would have been like you leave, okay, you buy some clothes. I would have just hand waved that, and now you're there.
Sure.
But sometimes it was one of those cases where I'm following the players. Oh, okay. Well, so. How much do we spend, and what do we get, and what do we want kind of clothes we want to get? That's another place where I could have been more prepared with. You go to this store, they have these things. You go to this store. And the resource that I have, the Volo's Guide to Waterdeep, lists weird places of interest, which includes a few shops. Then it has an extensive list of taverns. It has an extensive list of fest halls, which are brothels.
Okay.
They're just straight up brothels.
Okay.
Like they TSR literally made him change the name from brothel to fest hall, but that's what it is. It has an extensive list of brothels, what sort of quality services that they provide, not in explicit detail, but in enough detail that you get a very good idea of what kind of brothel this is, and that's pretty much it. Sometimes there's an alley described. So it's pretty weird.
Yeah, you'd have to plan out a shopping trip if that's something that you want.
Yeah, and I hadn't really anticipated that we were going to have a shopping thing.
Yeah.
So as much as I love kind of flipping through that book and getting ideas and getting names of places and who runs the place and whatnot, I'm wondering if I shouldn't get a little bit broader, water deep resource, because I looked through that whole book for a theater, and there's no theaters in that book.
Yeah,
and I'm like, it tells you a lot about like what the priorities were for world building.
Sure.
When there's not a theater in like the biggest city in the Forgotten Realms.
I just needed to play Civilization once and realize oh, if we don't put a theater in here,
they sort of have a library, right?
Right.
I mean, they went there.
Yeah.
The Scriveners Guild is sort of the library. I don't know.
Yeah.
So then we got the play started and the riot started. That felt a little rough because they were like, "Oh well, this is bad. Let's leave." I was like, "Oh,
let's get out of here."
They don't have any motivation to like try and quell the riot, and the whole like purpose of that scene is like try to calm the crowd down, try and stop them from wreaking havoc. And they're like, no.
Yeah, it felt like they didn't have an incentive to do anything. Like they were given the tickets by TAC, and I think from their point of view, it's like, oh, thanks for the tickets, it's a wedding gift basically, and it felt like they were looking for a reason to stick around. Like they knew, I think as players, that this is something they needed to be a part of, but I think it was hard to find the justification for the players to be there, especially Avril and Thon are not, necessarily going to leap out and start, trying to save people so much. So it really had the impetus was really with Eric, and him literally leaping into action with the help of Ava. Which was clutch as well. So
yeah, I think it could have. I think that scene could have benefited from a little more, just a few more specifics and a little more diversity of the audience, right? So they were sort of just described as this amorphous mob, and it would have been nice to see like, oh, some people brought their kids, and some people brought, there's a couple sisters of the Divine Radiance here who are, Quaker types who are taking in the show, but some innocent people who could be harmed when this mob kind of like rises up, and that might have provided a little more motivation for the players to step in and protect the weak. Yeah, because there was no one to save, right? It seemed like everybody was just right. And I think also coming off of last session, they'd probably felt a little burned by, oh, there's somebody running a scam. We don't want to get involved with their scam because that's just going to get us in trouble. Yeah. And that's essentially what was offered up to them in this session was there's a guy who appears to be running a scam. You don't know what it is. All right, we'll keep an eye on that guy, but I don't, we don't need to watch after us any more than they already are. Sure. So, all right. So the setup could have benefited from some more specifics. 3 rounds and out. So I think the most important thing about this combat is that it is supposed to go basically 3 rounds, and then the watch shows up. Honestly, we're converting a 4th edition adventure, so there's supposed to be a series of skill challenges, but the way it played out was more as more of a combat than a series of skill challenges. So it was not, nobody was Grayson tried a couple times to make a speech or do something to kind of distract or entertain the crowd, but he was the only one. Nobody else was interested in getting up on stage or standing up in the audience and exhorting people to, like, you know, calm down, pay attention, or watch what I can do, or something like that. Right. It really turned into like, let's fight. So that was the point at which I went, this is not a skill challenge. We're not going to work our way through X number of successes, X number of failures. We're going to run this as a combat, but we're going to cut it off 3 rounds. We're not going to run it open-ended and wait until one side or the other is defeated. Right. And I think it benefited from that because it makes the villains a little more believable. In the scenario, you're supposed to catch the magic user guy, right? But I think it's more interesting for him to just go, I'm out of here. Yeah. And they caught some thugs, so they can interrogate those guys. That's fine. And 3 rounds is about enough for everybody to try something cool. Yeah. And it's about long enough in terms of our play space and the amount of time that we have for a combat to be interesting and satisfying. But then much longer than that, and you're like, okay, well, let's wrap this up.
I mean, it seemed like... for the most part, they were doing pretty well in that combat. I don't know, you know, where the other folks were in there, like if they were actually going down a lot. But it seemed like they were getting good rolls and they were hitting, you know.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of wasted action.
Yeah, which just makes me think that if you had gone to a 4th round or even a 5th round, like things probably would have just cleaned up, and then you would have left. It would have had a more definitive end, but that might have not have been more of a like a storytelling way. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they would have defeated him, but then you wouldn't have the hubbub of the town guard coming in and dispersing everyone and making things almost worse. Yeah, in many ways, you know, which. And you had already established that the town guard was looking for the party and stuff. So it's like, I think like they were saying in chat, I think that the length of the fight was a good one, because I think all too often we've run into this with wildcards too. All too often players want to end a fight, right? They want to see it through. They're like, okay, we're here. Yep. It's a bad guy. I'm going to take him down. And it's like, okay, well, this bad guy's actually... I've done this playing Ravenloft with Gaurav, you know? We ran into Strahd. Yeah. Almost near the very beginning. Yeah. And he's all like, haha, you know, I'm going to take Irina away from you. And my character, not knowing anything, is just like, over my dead body, and he draws his axes and he goes running into it. And Strahd is just like, no, you're going to go jump off this bridge now. And he's like, charmed me. And I kept failing my charm rolls. And I'm like, what are we going to do to get out of this, you know? And Gaurav, like, afterwards was just like, why were you trying to fight him? You know, I'm like, well, my character would have. But that's just the thing, like, players tend to want to take on those challenges and end them. There's very little time where they're like, either let's book it or let's get a hostage and get out of here or something. You know, there's the alternatives rarely ever come into a D&D game. So I like it when we can play something else.
I think a huge part of that is there's a fundamental understanding when you sit down to play D&D that the DM has created a set of challenges that are appropriate for your characters, right? And that sort of goes back, I mean, it goes back all the way to AD&D and whatnot. Yeah. Ever since, you know, if they said a module is for 5th to 7th level characters, if you encountered something that was like a Dracolich or something like that, you'd be like, well, why is that in this module? It's for 5th to 7th level characters. So even though some people would say like, oh, well, you know, 3rd edition really ruined it when they provided all of these encounter level guidelines and things like that, I would argue it goes all the way back kind of to the roots of D&D, although there certainly were things that we've seen with old school stuff like Tomb of Horrors and things like that, where it's like, oh, okay, well, there's challenges that you can't defeat, but the whole purpose of those things is to try and defeat them even though you can't defeat them, right?
Right.
Like the whole purpose of Tomb of Horrors is to try to survive it even though you're not supposed to. So it still ties into the idea that the DM is going to create an appropriate set of challenges that you will somehow be able to attack and solve and conquer. And that's fine for a game, but it's not dramatic storytelling.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
Like it's almost sort of like a James Bondian kind of trope where like James Bond can kick anyone's ass is sort of the idea, right? When really you want to think of like, I don't know, and I think of like, I'm trying to think of an action hero who does get their ass handed to them and then comes back later and defeats that guy.
I think of like John McClane or something.
Yeah, like Die Hard, right? You know, like they just keep chiseling away at him and taking things away, and he manages to kind of slowly outfox the minions and assemble his little, you know, toolbox of things that he's going to use to defeat the bad guy at the end, right? Yeah.
Maxwell's smart.
So
he just has a shoe phone. He doesn't. Okay.
I understand that player philosophy.
Yeah.
It's been something that's been drummed into them over decades, but I feel like for the purposes of what we're doing, but also we're kind of coming into this more modern era of role-playing games where it truly is interactive storytelling and not so much interactive XP grinding.
Yep.
And for purposes of telling an interesting and dramatic story, you have to have, you know, the big bad guy appear and give his big speech and go, "You'll never get me," and then disappear. And if they attack him, he's like, wham.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's one of those things where the game is a little bit at odds with the goal of storytelling. It's a perfectly natural way to play the game. It's not a great fit for telling an interesting and dynamic story that has a fun and surprising arc.
I think that's probably one of the biggest hurdles dungeon masters have now, is competing with a video game mentality, as it were. Like you said, like D&D started this way, you know, where it was just you have these things and you beat them or you don't. You know, you die basically. You know, there's no other, like, that's how you progress. And video games took up that mantle, whereas RPGs sort of expanded and was like, hey, you can actually do other things here. You don't have to do that. There's no reason. Whereas video games are like, we can't program everything that you want to do.
Right.
And so the mindset has just been reinforced, like you said, many, many times, that as a player, you have to solve the problem. And there's one way to solve that problem.
Right.
And, you know, I could see the players last night sort of thinking like, yeah, at first they were like, let's get out of here, and then they're like, well, okay, well, now our friend is down there, we should probably try and save him, and do we really need to do anything with these guys? And okay, they're shooting at us. Why'd you Megan was great because she's like, why did you do that? Why did you shoot him with a crossbow? You know, that's I think that is much more interesting to watch and I think play as a player, and it's something even I have to work out, because I'm like, I can beat these guys, I can do it, you know. Right. It's like, no, you don't have to, you know. And it's still you're still playing the game even when you don't, you know.
Well, and unfortunately, you know, so many of the tools that you have at your disposal are designed to just do that one thing, take hit points away.
Yeah.
Really, and that's the major, you know,
right.
Maybe impose a condition on someone, but largely it's, I'm going to grind you into the ground.
Yeah.
And just to pick up on something that you said about video games, is this whole idea is reinforced by video games tenfold.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like, oh, like World of Warcraft. It's like, okay, here's your newbie area, and you go in here and you kill rats or farm mushrooms until you are at an appropriate level where you go on to the next thing. And so it's trained into you as a player, like, well, there's no challenge that I can't overcome. And if it is, there's something wrong with what the DM is doing, or the game is broken, or did I stumble into the wrong area? I'm playing it wrong. Nobody thinks they're playing D&D wrong.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah.
yes. So I will say one thing that I did do was I did kind of skinny down the hit points on a lot of the creatures so that it did go 3 rounds, and they did score some victories along the way to getting to that 3rd round, and everything kind of ties off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might have been better if they'd have been able to capture those guys. I think it might have just overall been a little bit better of a combat if the opponents had been up in the balcony with them. We could have gotten a little more directly involved. There was a lot of kind of, well, you're up here, you're trapped up here, and everything's happening down here. And it took a lot of time for... It didn't take long for Grayson to get down on the stage, but it took a lot of time for everyone else to try and get involved. And then it was a lot of work to get down there.
Yeah.
I don't even remember how Ava got down onto the... Oh, she Misty stepped.
She Misty stepped.
Yeah. So...
Which was great.
BSB Care says some video games are getting away from the smash and trash kind of thing. So, yeah. Black Razor did eat a guy. I was glad that Black Razor ate a guy. Black Razor needed to eat a guy. Number 1, because it's Black Razor, and number 2, it's like, you can't bully that sword around for too long, and it had already been too long.
Right.
So we're gonna tackle a perennial and difficult topic. We're gonna talk about grappling. So, for those of you who watched the VOD or were watching live last night, we came to this point where Avril decided to kind of wrap this. There's a sniper guy up in the booth, and she jumped over there and then wrapped the guy up, and she really wanted to choke him out and subdue him.
Yeah.
And the rules just don't support that in a way that I can think of, or I certainly couldn't think of at the time.
Yeah.
And so this topic isn't necessarily 100% about grappling per se, because I think the grappling rules are all right. I don't know. I have players who have a problem with the monster grappling rules, because the monster grappling rules are the troll hits you with a claw, you take 13 points of damage, and you're grappled. There's no opposed rule. There's nothing. It's just you're grappled. Now it's your job to get out of it. Whereas when the players try to grapple somebody, they have to make an attack roll. They don't do any damage, and then the opponent is grappled, and then the opponent can kind of get out of it. So there's no bonus. Like with monsters, it feels unfair because they don't ever get a chance to resist it, right?
Right.
So it's a little bit weird that way, but I understand for expediency at the table that's the way that is. I think maybe what I've been thinking when I put this on the agenda today is I'd like to discuss, and honestly discuss, because I haven't thought through it very well, but I think she was frustrated by not being able to essentially like make an overcome or subdual kind of roll. Like in Fate, you would overcome someone. that's what it would be. They'd be defeated. You'd overcome them, right?
Right.
And that's really mostly a single opposed check, and then that's the end of it.
Yeah, there isn't a lot. I wanted to look up because there are some feats, I believe, that allow you to do a little bit more if you are grappling something.
Yeah, I think there is a grappler feat or something like that. Yeah, grappler right here.
Yeah. So you have advantage on attack rolls against someone that you're doing that. Creatures that are once as larger, you don't automatically succeed on checks to escape your grapple. You can use your action to try to pin a creature grappled by you to do so. So yeah, it's still not what she wanted to choke him out.
Yeah.
And which under Pathfinder rules or even 4E or something like that, that's something that probably would have there were things that would have allowed you to do that. But 5E doesn't really explicitly say that. If you're grappled, you're grappled. You can't move. That's it. You still have to knock down their hit points.
Right.
Down. There's no like coup de grace or anything like that.
I think part of it is, well, yeah. I mean, assuming that they're prone when they're grappled, you'd have advantage on melee attacks, right?
Yeah.
So that would help. But yeah, we've got a couple good suggestions in the chat. BSB Care says you have to maintain the grapple for 2 rounds plus whatever their con modifier is. So if they had a con modifier of +2, then you'd have to maintain the grapple for 4 rounds. And if they had a con modifier of -1, you don't have to maintain it for 1. James V says throw 3 checks at them. The first is the grapple, the second one is to restrain them, and the third one is a strength versus con check to see if he stays awake. So those are all, I like those suggestions. They seem fairly mechanically clean and whatnot. As I pointed out last night, I think the tough thing about applying these rules is they should cut both ways, right? So if your PC doesn't have a great con modifier, doesn't have any con modifier, if they're grappled for 2 rounds, then they're unconscious. That feels tough, especially because there's so many like high strength, high con kind of beast type creatures, or bruiser type of creatures, and PCs aren't always built that way. If you're a wizard, you probably have crap strength, and maybe you have a +2 con, but yeah, I don't know. It's almost one of those things that demands. I think this is what I would propose. I would propose that you would have to spend a number of bumps to pull off a move like that.
Yeah, for our game?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't mean this in terms of like I'm going to solve the problem in Dungeons and Dragons, but I think it's something that was clearly an issue at our game last night, and it's something that should be addressed going forward in our game. And I could see the bump economy being used to activate that kind of special ability, whether it's like 5 bumps to choke the guy out, or maybe what it is if it's a strength versus con kind of check, you could spend a number of bumps over 3 to give yourself an even better chance of choking the guy out. Like if it cost bumps, I think I would be okay with it, right? Like there's a price attached to it, and it's going to deny them some resources down the road. And also, just parenthetically, because we were talking about storytelling and whatnot just a few minutes ago, it's far more interesting to capture a prisoner than it is to coup de grace somebody and just slay them, right? Like I could see this applying to, well, if you want to subdue the guy and knock him out, spend the bumps and try and activate this thing. I wouldn't use it for, I'm going to do a cold shot and shoot the guy through the skull and knock him out and he's dead in one shot. I wouldn't want him to use it to one-shot kill important enemies.
It's hard because you storytelling wise, it's like, okay, yeah, sure, you got him in a headlock and you take the butt of your dagger and you hit him in the back of the head and he's out. But you don't want
that's TV.
That's a TV thing. You don't want to establish, oh, if I get behind a guy and I get him in a headlock, I can just knock everyone out. So then she just sneaks up on everyone and just knocks everyone out. Like that won't work. There are suffocation rules, but
it's a matter of like pacing, right? It's a matter of what's appropriate for the drama of the moment.
Yeah.
And the thing about the suggestions that we have is they don't account for the drama of the moment at all. Right? It treats every situation equally. And I think one of the things that Havana was struggling with was she wanted to do something else besides spend the next 3 rounds going, and really not doing much damage to the guy, knowing that he's probably got 45 hit points and she's only going to be able to do 8, So it's going to take like 6 rounds to conk this guy out. And she's looking at the clock going, well, if we're going to be here till 12:30, maybe.
Right.
But, you know, dramatically, and at least in terms of the play experience, it would have been far more interesting for her to, you know, conk that guy out and then leap up to the side of the rail and maybe like throw more daggers or do something else heroic and interesting.
Yeah.
So I think that's, you know, that's one of those struggles in terms of creating these rules, that oftentimes a combat is marching through a process and marching through a workflow. And when everything's fair and balanced, it's not dramatic.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to, you know, I've run into situations where I've had DMs who are like, you'll throw something out there and you'll be like, okay, I want to leap over this guy with my sword, and as I'm leaping over, I hurl the sword at this guy. It's like, that's an awesome move. That would be super cool. Okay, do this, and it's just like a standard just fighting. Like, that's super cool. Let's make that happen, right?
Yeah.
Then I'll have other DMs who are like, okay, that's super cool. Roll agility, roll athletics check.
These 5 checks.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well that takes, all right, well now, okay, I can.
And then you fail at one of them, and they go, "Well, you tried, but it didn't work."
Yeah, it's like, okay, that's not fun, but at least you preserve the integrity of the mechanics, so that in the future someone's not going like, well, hey, I got to do this. Yeah, I got to do this last time. Soon Raccoon points out the suffocation rules in 5e. First, you have to knock them down to 0. First, you have to eliminate their air supply, and they can survive holding their breath for 1 plus their con modifier, no less than 30 seconds. Then, once they're out of air, they can survive their con modifier rounds until they're at 0 hit points, and then they start to die. But that, like you're saying, that just would have taken so long, because the guy's going to be struggling. You're going to make competing grappling checks every round.
Right.
She would have to continue to make them. She's not a super strong character.
Right.
So she'd have to continue to do that every time, and we would have been well past, 5
I
or
think
6 rounds.
Anybody who was paying attention last night saw that I was making judgment calls in favor of the players in terms of what's cool in this moment as opposed to what's realistic in this moment. There was definitely, and I knew it while I was sitting there, there's definitely, when Avril, wall ran from the corner of the balcony over into the other private booth or whatever, like, she shouldn't have been able to do that, but she rolled well, and it was more interesting to have her attempt that than it was to just blanket go, no, you can't do that.
Right.
I'm not saying that the players get a free pass on things, but it's important to give them opportunities to do things that are potentially cool with some downside risk, as opposed to just telling them, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do that. I guess I'll throw a dagger.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that is the most effective thing you can do in the situation that's been laid out before you, but it's not interesting. It's not a fun thing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So I do lean toward, just to kind of like put a button on this whole, in this particular topic, I do lean toward using some sort of in-game currency. It could be something like it. Now, if you don't have bumps at your table, which you probably don't, you could use inspiration. Okay, well, I'm going to spend my inspiration to activate this type of thing.
Yep.
Now, the DM has a lot of control over how much inspiration gets pumped into the system, so that's up to them. And inspiration is kind of an on and off type of thing. It doesn't really stack up, so it has some value to it as a commodity. But that would be a great way to be like, oh, I want to do something game breaking. I'm going to spend my inspiration to try and activate above and beyond an effect that normally wouldn't work in the game.
Yeah.
And if you can come to some agreement as to just how much you're going to bend the needle on what's game breaking, then I think it would be a useful tool at your table. And we could do that at our table too. Instead of spending bumps, say, oh, I'm going to spend my inspiration on this to activate this. You could give inspiration. It would have an extra bonus effect or something like that.
And I think our game, more than maybe some home games and stuff, because we are live and we have an audience and stuff, we're attempting to make things more cinematic in a way. And the rewards and stuff that we have, which leads into the next topic, but the rewards that we have are more sort of allow that cinematic in a more mechanical fashion, where it's like you have the flashback, but the inspiration and stuff is not simply getting to roll 2 die or having advantage on a roll. It's more like giving that extra boost of oomph to a move or something like that, where it's all in how it's interpreted, right? And how people are playing with it. But in our game, it's vitally important that we have a sort of cinematic feel to things, and the story is continuing while also maintaining the reverence, for lack of a better term, towards the rules.
Right. But people have put tips in the tip jar to activate these things, and they want to see it. They want it to have a tangible or a noticeable effect, or at least like have it played out in some way.
Right.
I do want to address kind of briefly something that came up in chat. There's 2 things. One thing, piggybacking off of what you said, we're playing here, 1 for an audience, and number 2 in a limited time slot, right? Like we could have, if we were in a home game last night, we could have played to the end of that thing and then gone, all right, well, tell you what, guys, it's 10:30. Let's call it a night early, and we'll pick up the rest of the session the next time or whatever, right? But we're trying to fit, a reasonable amount of adventure and interest and storyline into the 3 hours that we have. So for us, it's a little bit different structure. The other thing that's been going around, there's been a discussion in chat, is that hit points are not directly analogous to like life force durability type of thing, right? And I tried to communicate that a little bit last night, where I said it's not a matter of it's not a matter that hit points are how strong you are or how much damage, physical damage, you can resist. They're a matter of how much luck you have, your ability to shake off punishment, that sort of thing. But that's a very abstract concept, right? Hit points are such a concrete thing that you when you start to have that discussion, it leads players to go, okay, well, wait a minute. So if an average human has 6 hit points, how much do they have? 5 hit points, that's their health, and then 1 hit point, that's their luck or durability.
Right.
And if that's the case, if I have 36 hit points, do I have 31 points of luck and 5 points of health? Or and you get into systems where you have wounds and vitality and all that kind of weird stuff. It takes you down a bizarre road. Right. So like conceptually, I understand the idea that hit points are this amorphous measure of.
It's the 3rd time we've used amorphous.
That's the thing for me today, right? But I understand that piece of it, like how you want to have that definition of it, but it doesn't translate very well to the player who's just sitting at the table going, I can, and you never describe it as, oh, you are threatened for 8 hit points. You always say you take 8 hit points of damage.
Right.
Okay, I take damage. That's damage, right? Whereas if you said, you've been intimidated and you feel your will kind of weakening for 15 points. Okay. But D&D is not set up to describe things in those terms. Something like fate is, right? You take mental stress. You take stress. Yeah. Oh, okay. It's not that I'm super strong. It's just that I'm resilient in the face of stress.
Yeah. Savage Worlds does that. The Star Wars Fantasy Flight Star Wars has strain and stuff like that. It is definitely a mechanic that D&D has sort of stayed away from, as sort of a secondary health monitor, basically. You know, with Call of Cthulhu, you've had sanity and you've had hit points and stuff like that, and it's like tracking the various things that a player can go through. And in D&D, I think, you know, your hit points encapsulate all of that.
My chat window stopped.
Oh no!
Here. I'm very disappointed.
Guys, spam chat.
Spam chat. I don't know what's going on. My iPad just died. Not the iPad, the thing. All right. So a different amount of discussion. Anyway, so our final topic today is
Flashback rewards.
So I think, you know, it got awarded last night. It didn't get deployed. I think one thing is...
okay, that's enough spamming.
One thing that's tricky is I think it should be a flashback that's available to the whole table, and we've been specifying like this player gets the flashback. Yeah. And if it's available to the whole table, then anybody can go, oh, I'll do a flashback scene on this. Mm-hmm. Whereas if it's one person, if they don't think of it, or if they forget about it, or the situation doesn't present itself where they go, oh, well, I could, you know, apply the flashback here, then the rest of the table doesn't feel like they have an opportunity to benefit from it. And I think it's a cool mechanic. I don't really need it to be deployed more than once a game. Mm-hmm. And so I think it should be something that whoever at the table wants to use it, like first come, first serve, whoever decides to take advantage of it should be able to take it. I also think, along those lines, though, is you could have a flashback involving one or more other players, and you would both benefit from that thing. Right?
Sure.
So if it's, we need to climb this wall. Oh, remember that time when the three of us were climbing the roof in Neverwinter, you know, or whatever. Have that little flashback scene, and then all three people involved in the flashback would get advantage on that roll.
Yeah,
that's the way I think it could be better used. The other thing that I think is it would be nice to have some sort of totem on the table that would be a visual cue that it's in play, it's available, a memory stone, if you will, or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. I know that we get a lot of clutter on the table and the players kind of start to tune it out, but some sort of physical reminder would potentially, I think, help that.
Yeah.
So that's my. I mean, I think it's something that's worth continuing to explore. I think we got to tweak it a little bit more as we go through.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I'm curious what you guys think about the rewards for Iron Keep.
Why not use the Monday Night Dungeon fight?
Yeah. You have a flashback.
Yeah. Okay. Guys, remember that time in Monday Night Dungeon fight where Eric lost?
So every Monday Night Dungeon fight?
Every Monday Night Dungeon fight.
Yeah, give me an axe. Yes, you have absolutely watched more than 3.4 hours of our stream. The 3.4 hours does not reference how long you have watched our stream, just how many points you have earned. It just
are our points measured in hours?
Well, the point structure from D20 Robot is meted out at 10-minute intervals. You get a point a minute, basically, something along those lines, but it's the hours are condensed by that, so it doesn't have anything to do with how much you've the hours do not reflect your actual hours of watching that. If that makes any sense. Not really.
Well, we should call it mullions, or
we could call it anything we want.
Yeah. What if we called it grapples? You have
grapples.
3.4 grapples worth of saving throw under your belt.
Yeah. Yeah, like I know Christian has watched more than 148 hours of the stream. That's just
I don't know. He's kind of a fair weather fan.
Texas Devon 698 hours. No, it's got to be more. How many hours do I have? 760 hours. Do I have more than that?
Oof.
But see, I can give myself any amount of gold I want. So.
Oh man, I'm giving myself golds.
And Farquaad's just completely blown past everything, so he has no. He doesn't even have a rank anymore.
You need 0 points to become an
exclamation point. Yeah.
I almost said asterisk apostrophe asterisk again.
Oh, no.
Bang! You need 0 points to become a bang.
6 months of Storm King Thunder due to spoiler restrictions. Oh, yeah. Giving Me an X would have watched more, but they missed it.
Yeah, he was in my Storm King's Thunder game. That's why.
6 months to become a Tilde.
All right.
So yeah, I don't know. I think overall I enjoyed the session last night. I'm excited to see where Ava ends up with things and how that progresses. I know that Megan has some things up her sleeve with that character, which I think are going to be interesting.
Oh, and just for people who kicked in we did unlock Ava's special power last night, and I think what it is going to be is once per long rest or whatever, she can essentially activate a wild surge, a sorcerer's wild surge, and that's what we saw last night. Which, it activated on its own. But I feel like I might come up with one that is specific to kind of her suite of powers. It's more maybe water or sea kind of themed.
Right.
But I like the idea of having some sort of wand of a wonder type of ability that maybe she can invoke but doesn't know what the circumstances. That just seems very in character for her, especially as a Scourge Azamar who's can surround herself with this wild chaotic energy, the radiant zone that she can create, although she hasn't done it yet.
When are you going to start introducing Modrons into your game?
How about an expedition to the Barrier Peaks?
Oh.
How does that sound? I like the idea of Modrons. Honestly, one of the things I considered was playing Dead Gods.
Oh, yeah.
Monty Cook's kind of big Planescape magnum opus, right? So, something I thought about. I think doing a conversion to Expedition to the Barrier Peaks will be fun. There's no reason we can't use Modrons, at least in stat form, if not necessarily have them involved in the ship itself.
Right. Shimmickson asks if gold will eventually be able to be used in Ironkeep. So I saw someone ask what can gold be used for. So yes, gold can be used for toasts in wildcards. It can be used to summon a carrier penguin in Tempting Fate. And Uncanny Valley, I believe, is going to start using gold. We started using it last session. We need to do a better job of explaining it though, but it's a similar thing where you can buy gold and then it locks out of gold and then it goes and then you have to pay cash to keep invoking something, but it's basically adding things to the changeling's bag of tricks. Essentially you can spend 500 gold and add something to that. So in terms of Ironkeep, we can talk about that and figure something that can work. Can gold be used as a real money exchange? I wish it could. Yeah, considering I can give myself any amount of gold that I want, I wish that I could exchange it somehow.
I think it's worth noting, in case it's not obvious, that this is one of those areas of the stream and areas of the game where there are a lot of opportunities to do something different and interesting and have a bunch of different effects, but it's also something that Dom and the rest of the GM team always struggles with, because we want to give you ways to influence the game, but we don't want to slow down the game. Like when we started playing, we did rerolls a lot. Well, rerolls do really slow down the game, and they also undercut the stakes of what's happening, right? So then I proposed this whole bump system, which is great, but all of these things, we don't want to give you so many things to buy that it kind of like loads up the players with all of this stuff that they may not necessarily then get to use, and then you're like, well, why did I donate for that when they didn't even use it, right? And that's where it's like finding that balance. And as Jordan Callerman kind of deploys on a regular basis, it's like working your way up to those story triggers in the tip jar is what is a terrific balance for us between getting contributions that affect the game but don't slow down what's happening at the table, and they get deployed either in that session or along the way, right? So last night we unlocked An Old Nemesis Returns. Well, I don't know if Grayson tuned into it or not, but what I was driving at that very last scene where, oh, okay, well, it seems like there's something in the wine, and then it turns out there's something else in the goblet, and it's the two of them together that's the poison. This looks like a two-part poison. Now, I think he got what I was driving at, but what I was driving at is that Gingy the Poisoner from Sunless Citadel is involved, because that's the last time that they encountered somebody deploying a two-part poison, right? Is the Gingy used a two-part poison to poison Thawne's father. Whether they got that or not, but that was unlocked. That's going to become an ongoing issue or through line as we continue to play through this adventure. Does that mean there's going to be a confrontation with Gingy? I don't know. We're not there yet, but it's been introduced. It may not necessarily be overt, but we got there and it paid off, and it doesn't require us to go, okay, well, how many do you have left? Okay, I'm going to write that down. And you still have I'm going to write that down and do a bunch of bookkeeping.
Yeah.
Or to do a timeout, like, oh, no, wait, I'm going to re-roll that. So, I 100% understand your motivation to either put a tip in the tip jar or spend your gold or whatever it is to kind of back your favorite players and back the home team and all that sort of stuff. Like that's kind of the foundation of what the channel is built on. But we need to balance that against getting 3 hours of interesting, entertaining content out there.
Right.
So we're absolutely open to hearing those ideas. We have to kind of counterbalance that with what kind of presentation are we putting together?
Yeah.
How does it affect the play experience and the viewing experience for everyone involved? So it's I say that just as a way to go, we're well aware that there's different ways that we could integrate this stuff into the game, and we're thinking about them and we're tinkering with them all the time because we want to strike that happy balance between giving you the satisfaction of helping the players that you love or the party that you love versus propelling the story forward and running a clean session.
Yeah. Is there a way to maybe just using gold towards the story element? I mean, there's a way we can certainly have something that, if you spend a certain amount of gold and that A tier is unlocked solely by gold, by you guys spending gold, we could do that. So then, Dom doesn't. Yeba actually donated to supply me with that, but I got Age of Empires 3 because Amy was harassing me to get Age of Empires 3 yesterday. Really? And so I got it, but with the money that we had raised for our audio budget. But Yeba stepped in and donated to get the game for me, so that was very nice.
I should look and see what Steam keys I have because I have small. You can put that stuff on your Steam wish list and just let it sit and simmer.
Speaking of, tomorrow I'll be playing Tales from Candlekeep, which is the new Tomb of Annihilation game that's out. Huh. It's I think it takes place in Chult, and it's sort of a ISO kind of dungeon crawly Baldur's Gate semi game thing.
Okay, that sounds cool.
D&D created. So yeah, I believe it is on Steam. It came out yesterday. So anyway, yeah, gold. Yeah,
sorry. My dog.
That dog.
Too many fries.
So yeah, be thankful you guys are on the other end of this camera. But yeah, gold is still something that we're playing with. The other thing that we could do is Streamlabs now has Streamlabs has a extension that goes over basically over the screen. So as you're watching, if you hover your mouse over the screen, it's not, we don't have it active right now, but you might have seen it a couple weeks ago because I was testing it out. If you hovered over the screen, you'd see the little Streamlabs icon, and if you clicked that, it would have brought up some various things that you could do, and you would earn gold, but it was via Streamlabs exclusively, so it was still separated from our other gold thing. It was similar to how we had it when we had Revlo and D20 Robot, kind of both earning gold at the same time. But Streamlabs has sort of taken over somewhat of what Revlo was doing, in that they have rewards that you can now get off the website. There are some downsides to moving over there. The upsides is that we can move all of the Ankbot gold over to Streamlabs, so you wouldn't lose any gold. Another upside is that you don't have to leave to go to to buy a reward with your gold. You don't have to go anywhere to find out how that is. All those rewards would still be in Streamlabs. However, it's not connected to cash, so you can't have those, you can't click on those rewards and spend money to unlock them as well. So it's still not a complete system like we want. We want a system where it's an extension that's on there, and you guys don't have to leave to go to a Google Doc to see what we have and stuff like that. I really hate that every time someone wants to donate or drop a tip or something like that, they have to come out of the Twitch, go somewhere else, and then come back. That's for another. We can talk about that at Proficiency Check or whatever. But that's what my ideal. That's what I'm trying to drive towards and find solutions that will eventually get us to that point. Streamlabs is starting to edge that way, but isn't completely there yet. So we're going to stick with D20 for now, and that gold system. In terms of whether we have a gold unlock for Iron Keep, I don't know. We'll talk. We'll figure something out. Everyone seems to want to do the toast thing right now, but that's sort of Wildcard's domain, and I don't want to get too.
Yeah, it feels. I mean, I don't know. It seems like it makes sense in the Savage Worlds Wild West format.
Yeah,
I don't know. It feels somehow intrusive or off brand, if you want to call it that, for a fantasy D&D game.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
You could send a scry.
Yeah.
Who's scry? Who dis?
We could. I don't know. It wouldn't necessarily. I was just thinking maybe we could do something where they would get advantage on initiative or something like that, where they could reroll their initiative. But that doesn't come up every game either, right?
Yeah,
it's that sort of stuff.
Battle cries. Someone yelled out a battle cry. Yeah.
And
thanks, Give Me an Axe. Yeah. Sound upgrade. We're researching things right now to hopefully improve our sound and get things better. I mean, what it kind of boils down to is what we really need is a sound guy. We need to hire a sound guy to come in and run sound, basically, and improve our sound. Yeah, we're not quite there yet, but we're getting to a point where we can sort of self-automate a lot of our stuff. So
I'll talk to Dom about what we've got set up, and if there's anything that you can do to come in and give it the once over, because honestly, that is my number one complaint about anything on the internet that I'm supposed to watch, which is if I can't hear it, I am not interested. Yep. I hate having to crank that volume up, and then all of a sudden you forget about it, and you come back and your browser auto plays a video, or you open up something on Twitter or whatever, and it's like, brah!
Whoa.
Yes.
That's cool.
We're now in 4-bit, everybody.
Yeah, this camera also, our main camera has been having some funky little video things where it will turn red or blue or something like that. And I don't know. I think maybe the fan is acting funny on it. It's overheating a little bit. But anyway, fun times.
Well, that
for an
seems like
channel.
an auspicious way to bring our stream to a close. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Luigi just settled in as well. Yeah. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I really appreciate all of the discussion and comments that we had today. It was a very, I thought, fruitful discussion. So it's always great to have you join us and give your input. And on Tuesday, I will be back here, I guess, and we're going to prep the next kind of little arc of our adventure. Like I said, it's called Stage Misdirections. It's a Living Forgotten Realms adventure. It's 47 pages, but a bunch of that is just skill checks and stat blocks and maps and things like that. So if you want to check it out, it is sometimes a little meandering to follow what goes what to where, and I guarantee you I'm going to hack this thing. But there's 8 major encounters, and we've basically played through 1.5. So I think we'll probably go maybe 2 more sessions on this, something like that, and then we'll start tackling, Expedition to the Barrier Peaks. So that's where we're at. Tonight, if we take a look at our calendar, is Crit Juice. You can join us for that.
Nope.
Huh? Is it not Thursday? Is it not?
Never
Oh, and it's
Tell
not
Me
Crit
the
Juice. It's Never Tell Me the Odds. I can't keep David Crennan's America's GM. I can't keep David Crennan's show straight. So
Right.
I'm so, look, every week, what do I play? I play the Iron Keep Chronicles. That's it. Every Friday, what does Jordan DM? He DMs Savage Worlds, Reloaded, whatever.
Deadlands Reloaded.
On
Wild Cards.
What's this? What's this show called? But no, I'm David Crennan. I get to run whatever I want. I see how it is. So you can join him tonight for Fantasy Flight's Star Wars game. It's not the Force and Destiny version, though, right? It is just Edge of the Empire.
Well, he kind of uses a combo of all the.
I'm David Crennan. I can mix and match Fantasy Flight Star Wars games as much as I want. I see how it is. David Crennan. So join us tonight for that at 8 o'clock. Tomorrow at 11, as Dom mentioned, you can watch him play Tales from Candlekeep. That has piqued my interest.
I have barely touched it. I played the tutorial and was like, oh, okay, I think I get it. And then we'll play.
We'll see what happens. Friday night at 8 o'clock, DJ Jordan Caves Callerman comes in and hangs squirrels and other miscellaneous flora and fauna from a weird psionic. I don't know if it's psionic. I just like to say psionic.
Well, yeah.
A weird wandering hanging tree.
Yeah.
So that's not disturbing at all.
Yeah.
Saturday, hey, if you missed something, catch it up on the YouTubes. And Sunday at 1 o'clock is Maximum Miniatures. Iron Tusk will be here. Is that true? Iron Tusk, fresh off of brand new Baby Tomb.
Yep.
A few months into fatherhood there. We'll be here. Do you have an idea of what you're going to paint or what's going on with that?
We're going to paint some small things. I think Gaurav and Megan are going to be here. We have a little things. We're building up to a big show that we're going to do with Maximum Minis. And that's all I'll
cool.
say.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
And then Friday at 5 p.m. Sunday at 5 p.m. Tempting Fate returns. Do you know who's in the cast? Tempting Fate has a lot of people come in and come out. So.
Yeah. It's Sam DeLev, Omar Najam, Heather Wood, maybe?
Are Rick and Nick both GMing?
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember everyone. I think Amy might be out, but Gina might be back, or Eliza's there. I don't know.
All right,
but yeah, Sam DeLev and Omar Najam, I think, are the two
for sure.
Yeah, two for sure that I know of.
Coolio. And then coming up in 2 weeks from Saturday, 2 weeks from Friday, is our Extra Life stream.
Yeah. 2 weeks from tomorrow is our Extra Life marathon. We kick it off with Wild Cards at 8 o'clock. And then
is that Savage Worlds game with the Savage Worlds Reloaded
with DJ Jordan Keller,
DJ DM. Jordan Caves Callerman?
It is.
America's DJ, as I like to call him.
Oh. Then, yeah, I do need a command for Extra Life in there. That's good call. So starts off with wild cards. Then Havana at 12:30 in the morning is running. Well, I'm not sure exactly what she's running. Initially, she was going to run a Beastlings game.
Oh.
But now she might run a Roll for Shoes game. I'm not sure what she wants to do, but it's going to be Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo. Everyone's going to be
fun.
Play
Yeah.
a Scooby-Doo
If
character.
if she wants help hacking Beastlings to be a Scooby-Doo game, I would help her with that.
Sure.
Maybe we could do a disorganized play about that.
We could.
Hmm.
Then GM Michael Holmes is running Mutants and Masterminds, I believe, but with it's going to be Justice League Dark.
California's GM, as we like to call Michael Holmes. California's GM.
Justice League Dark, so you got your Constantine, you got your Deadman, you got your Zatanna.
Aquaman.
And Aquaman. Totally in Justice League Dark. No Aquaman. No Aquaman.
If there's any character that embodies the grim side of futility, it's Aquaman.
It's a man. It's a blonde-haired man in a sequined
Naive
orange.
optimism coupled with complete impotence is Aquaman.
Probably
nothing sounds darker than that to me.
The one good thing that came out of the New 52, I think, was Aquaman, because they finally showed like what a badass Aquaman actually is. But,
I've yet to believe it.
yeah. So Mutants and Masterminds. Then Garage.
I'm an old school Justice League from watching the TV
Super
show.
Friends?
Yeah, Super
Yeah.
Friends. That's my problem, right? And Aquaman was nothing but a freeloader who summoned dolphins in the sewer. That was Aquaman. Oh, hey, Wonder Woman, can I catch a ride with you again? Can I just please? Do you mind if I catch a ride with you again? Anyway.
Garav is running a Ravenloft game, 5e Ravenloft game, and then Mr. Tom Lommel, who we call around here Old Man Lommel.
Oh no! What?
No,
wow, that came back in a hard way. I didn't realize.
Happen?
Old man Lommel. Well, in my day,
Super Friends, and I played Expedition to the Barrier Peaks.
I bought Secret of the Salt Marsh and I played it as written. None of this fancy dancy. I'm going to remix and do a skill challenge, and it turns out that it's actually alien doppelgangers.
Tom is running Tales from the Loop.
Tales from the Loop. Oh, I was too busy thinking about what a great bit I had just done. Yes, I'm going to run Tales from the Loop. I just actually backed the Modifius, the new Modifius, whatever it was, the Frontier Realms, or they had a Kickstarter that ended literally today. Geek and Sundry tweeted about it. They're like, 15 minutes left. I'm like, I better look at this.
Yeah.
Because I'd looked at it before, but I just kind of let the campaign go. Yeah.
Were they successful?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wildly
Like their goal was, I don't remember, like 20,000, and they raised like 350,000 or something like that.
We need to
like,
do another Kickstarter campaign.
Well, I'll think about that.
Anyway, Tales from the Loop, and then after Tales from the Loop, we have a costume contest that you will get to vote on, featuring all of your favorite saving throw people, or most of them anyway.
This is the first I'm hearing about this. I have to wear a costume?
Yep. So anyway, it's Extra Life, which means that we are raising money for the Miracles Children Network hospitals, or the Children's Miracle Network.
Children's Miracle Network.
Children's Miracle Network. Children's hospitals basically around the country and in various other places around the world, and it's something that we've been doing since the beginning. So I'm super excited for that. So that's 2 weeks from tomorrow.
I need to go home and do some serious research as to what people wore in the 80s. I definitely don't have any first-hand experience as to... There are for sure no photos of me wearing clothes from the 80s. No.
I might be able to.
Dom is 40 though.
Yeah.
I mean, he was literally 17 years old in 1982. So,
Yep.
Isn't that 40?
Yeah, I think so.
That's 40.
I think so.
Yeah. I am trying to think actually how much 80s clothes I have in my costume closet, because I have a costume closet, you guys. That is not a joke. As a commercial actor, actually as an actor of any kind,
Just
name an actor who doesn't have a costume closet,
Right. I still have a tub of costume stuff.
There's a point at which your wife goes, "Why is this pink leopard skin dress in here?" And you go, "Well, honey, you signed the paperwork. It's too late.
Half of it's yours."
If you want to wear that dress, it's legally yours if you choose. I enjoyed it."
Okay. Before we start talking about Tickle Trunk, which I don't know what that is,
I will pull my lovely bride about the Tickle Trunk.
yeah. Ask.
Yeah, I'll ask Lindsay about that.
Anyway, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. I will be back here on Tuesday at 2 o'clock to talk about the next phase of this game. Wednesday we're going to play again. We're off to a great start. I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm having fun with. We kind of take this little piece of adventure at its own pace. I want to look at some more Waterdeep resources while I'm thinking about it. But that's it. I hope if you're in the Oakland area, well, first of all, I hope if you're in the Santa Barbara area, I hope you're safe and sound and everything's good for you, because we're having some horrible wildfires up there. But if you're in the Oakland area, go check out Big Bad Con this weekend. I will not be there, unfortunately, but I heartily recommend it. So go and indulge in that. I'm sad to be missing it. But until next time, let's dungeon. I'm still on? Oh. Yeah. What? Wait, how many in a row is that? BSB Care marked me down a bunch.